It is a beautiful day in the mountains today, and it's only fitting that I want to talk about scribing. Let's get started. See what I did there? Welcome to Van of Action, where we're taking a 2018 Dodge Promaster van and turning it into a family camper. And today we're doing another video about scribing, taking your materials and making it fit the odd shapes you find in a van. And God knows there's tons of those. Lots of different styles. This is the very basic style for scribing. Let's take a look. We want to take a piece of material and follow this curve, this bump out in this corner. That's what we're going to try and do. We're going to do it with this sheet so it'll be easy to see. Oftentimes when you're scribing, actually not oftentimes, every time you're scribing, you need to think about the piece in its entirety. Because normally, this is the edge you're trying to fit to a certain point. But this edge is straight, so you don't have to cut it. This edge is crooked, so you've got to cut whatever you have to cut off of this edge in order to put this side where you want it to go. That's what it's all about. So always look at this one first and get it situated the way you want it. If you didn't care where it was, you could just shove it up in there and just scribe it, it would be fine. But normally, that's not the case. And in fact, in the rest of this video, I'll be fitting the bottoms of the cupboards in place. It's really critical the front edge end up where it has to be, but you've got to cut it off the back edge to get it there. So now in this particular case, I'm going to be doing this edge. I want to fit in this corner too, and you'll see it's not quite square there. So what I'm going to do, I have to do it in 2 steps. The first step I have to do is this edge before I can do the long one, because the sheet's going to move this way in order to fit this corner. So I set it where I want it to be. I'm going to make a little notch here, a little mark here, and a little mark here, so I know exactly where I want my sheet to go back to after the second cut. And then as always, I'm going to do something to hold that work still while I'm doing what I'm doing. You might be able to clamp it, you might be able to tape it. I'm going to put some weight on it so it doesn't move. And then I take my scribing tool, which is really just a compass out of a children's geometry set. You can buy these at a hardware store. You can buy them at Lee Valley. You can make your own. It's just whatever you need to do. It's just a question of holding. As long as it's rigid enough to hold the pencil far enough away from the point, it'll work. So now I'm going to take and I'm going to just, you won't be able to see this very well. I'll show you on the next one. I'm just going to follow that line across. And I'm going to take a little, just mark where the edge of it is. And I'm going to cut that off. Okay, coming back, and always look at the marks you made here first to see how it's going to make sure that you get this edge where you want it before you even consider looking where you at your cut. That's a great angle. Now, okay, that looks good. That looks fine. I don't know if you can zoom in on that or not. That's fine. Now, I'm going to cut off this side, and when I do, this whole sheet's going to move this way. So this cut won't be right any longer. This cut's going to have to change. But I needed it in the corner to be sure that I'm going to cut this edge right. And then after I've cut it and pushed it in, I'll have to rescribe this edge to make it fit. You'll see how it goes. So now I've got the outside set this where I want it. I take my scribing tool and I open it up to the widest point that I have to cut. Just check along the way. See, this van, you would think that this piece was straight, but it isn't. This piece has a bit of a bow and a tube by the look of it. So I want to start down here. Now, with this tool, I'm going to scribe. Now remember, this sheet ultimately is going to move this way. It's going to move this way straight in. So it's important that as I mark my cut, I mark perpendicular to the piece I'm cutting to. If I turn on an angle, you'll see how it gets shorter. If I come out 90 degrees, I'm in the right place. So you start and just come along 90 degrees. Hopefully you can see that. If I wasn't 90 degrees, I could be cutting it too short or too long. I wouldn't be taking enough off. When you get to the curve, I have to hold it straight up and down. If you hold it like this as you go around the curve, you see you'll get pushed off. So straight up and down, follow the curve. Good. Come along. Now, I'll try changing the camera spot for this. Okay, so let's see if this come across. I've hit that black. Come out on the black. Okay. Let's try that. Now I have made the cut. Set it on and see how it's going to fit. Okay, now you see it's open here. And it's open here because this corner no longer fits properly. I had to fit that corner in the first place to make sure that I got these cuts in the right spot. But now that I've made these cuts, this is no longer right. And that's okay. That's exactly the way it's supposed to go. So what I do is, this whole sheet has to move this way that much. So I just take my scriber and I make it so that it's that big. Right there. And then I scribe off. You see here. You see that? And that's what I want to take off. And here is the finished piece. This is just a piece of scrap I used just to demonstrate the technique. The video shows us putting on these pieces on the bottom. Let's take a look. In this case, I want to take my 5/16 inch cedar skin and put it on the bottom of the cupboard. But the side of the van isn't straight, and the panel is wider than the cupboard is. So the first step is to take a look at the length, and I'm long, and that's good. I'm going to overhang both ends for now and work on the front. Step one is make sure you've got it positioned right to left, lengthwise properly. Step two, set the front of the sheet exactly parallel with the piece you're trying to scribe. So now I've got this cedar panel in exactly the position I want it to be in, but it's this far, too far to the left. I want to move the whole sheet that distance. So I use my scribing tool, measure the distance I want, and then mark this side. I'll show you. It's important you be perpendicular Okay, so I want to show you how I put this up. See that the clamp doesn't have to be tight. It just sits on it like it's a little shelf. Set of hands. There we are. Okay, come see. So I have a good line here at the front. It's good here as well. Now I gave myself, I took off the pencil line on the back end because I know I've got this vertical piece is going to come up against it, so I have a little bit of play there. And you see the way it fits along the edge. That is absolutely great. Now, once I get it positioned right to left, I just have to trim off the two ends, and that piece will be ready to put on. Before we say goodbye, here's a pro tip. This is my plywood floor, and I intentionally and very carefully cut it to be just about 3/32 of an inch short of the metal side. I didn't want these two pieces touching because if they did, they might have started to squeak. And that is exactly what I didn't want. Too close could be a problem. And this is the finished piece. Really happy with it. Turned out really well. Hope you found this useful. If you did, give us a like, a share, and a subscribe, and watch these other videos because Learning these skills is really important to a good, happy, easy van conversion. You be well, and you all come back.